It's the Final Word Daily here in Rajkot, here at the Lemon Tree Hotel on the balcony at the restaurant. You'll be able to hear all the cars flying back. I'm back with Vish. We're here for Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. I was meant to introduce the sponsor before the guest, but hey, I value people more than corporations. Sorry, Sheehan. Anyway, we're going to go over what we've kind of learnt in the last 24 hours. There's been quite a lot of news after the kind of Rajkot Test match. DRS is corrupt. It goes against England. Ben Stokes is going to bowl. Mate might be about to bowl. Ben Duckett, did he personally breed and build the player that is Jaiswal? It's up for debate. Anyway, I think we're going to start with DRS just because it's a thing that I think will irritate Vish the most, and he has to write a piece about it later on. I
think it irritates all of us, doesn't it?
It does. It does irritate
him. Entertain it.
It does, but also I just find it quite exciting. I find it quite funny when like a player. I think it's an instance where you realise players pay attention less to certain parts of the sport than we do. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. It's like when
cricket's bad for that. Yeah, cricketers specifically are bad for that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, if for those who aren't aware, yesterday after the match, Ben Stokes and Brendon McCullum went to match referee Jeff Crow and wanted clarification over Zach Crawley's dismissal.
We'll stop there for a second.
Okay.
Have you seen the photo?
Yes.
If they knocked on your door and they said, "Sorry, can we have a word?" you would jump out the bathroom, wouldn't you?
Are you saying it looks terrible?
Because of just the height, and McCullum's doing the talking, and Ben Stokes is just standing there, not saying a word. There's a bit of heavies about it.
I thought you were talking about like the photo of the image of the DRS of the Hawkeye.
No. I mean of them having the conversation with Jeff Crow.
It is remarkable. Match, yeah. There was, to peek behind the curtain, me and Stefan from the BBC were walking over to do the interview, and I'm doing some work for TalkSport, and this is kind of first match on the job, and we saw Ben Stokes and McCullum having a chat with Jeff Crow, and I kind of went to Stefan. I went, "That's news, isn't it? News is happening right now." And he was like, "Yeah, like we're gonna have to ask him about this." And it turns out the imaging had shown that it was going to miss the stumps, but actually the numbers said it was fine, and it was just a kind of it was a pixel, it was a frame thing, and I think for that reason, it's actually I don't really know what England are complaining about.
They're complaining about the mock-up, which isn't the point, basically, isn't it? The mock-up is there to rightly make the whole thing a little easier to understand. You know, you don't want to just throw up graphs. Statistics, one of the most important things about statistics and projections is being able to tell someone else what they mean. You know, It's all about the presentation in statistics. Otherwise, there are just things that you're working out and you're not able to relay to anyone else, which is why that mock-up exists. And it's why the dimensions of the mock-up are as they are. You know, when they talk about, the sums look a bit bigger there, it's just because it's easier to look at, and it's easier to compute. That's why. The thing that has gone in England's favour with regards to the argument, or regards to their grumbling, is that it seems to be that they've admitted that the picture was
wrong,
was incorrect, which is fine. The decision wasn't wrong, but the picture was wrong.
But even the picture doesn't look like that wrong.
No, I don't think so either.
Like when apparently you can see a bit.
We can say that here because neither of them two are here.
Jeff
Crow though, but I think you know what? Probably those nerds in there. Let me have a word with them. Hide me.
Okay, so I think we can draw a line on that. We'll move on from the DRS.
It's actually last word on it. It is actually quite straightforward.
Okay.
And I think the reason it rumbles on is because we spoke to McCullum today and he talked about that, which is coming out at midday later. And people have this conversation on social media, and old clips get thrown up, and this, that, and the other, and statistics about who benefits more from umpire's call or whatever. But that's why it rumbles on. The actual thing itself, the actual problem, the mistake, is nothing.
And it's also odd, I think, to add another thing, it used to be a case that umpire's call existed to protect the technology, because it was like there's a technology has a margin for error. So if
it did both, didn't it? But the technology had a margin for error, and it was quite a neat way of giving the umpire still retaining a degree of important power.
But I think now more than it was previously, it exists for that latter purpose of keeping the umpires some kind of responsibility within the role, because I think Hawkeye themselves are pretty confident that it's not 10 years ago anymore. It's not a case that if it's clipping the stump that means it might have actually been missing. Now it's a case that no, like if you do get rid of umpire's call and do just have it that the stumps are effectively half a stump either side bigger, what role does the umpire play? Anyway, we've just spoken to Brendon McCullum, and we're kind of looking forward towards the test match. He's decided that he agrees with Ben Stokes because that umpire's call should be scrapped on the basis that Ben said it and he doesn't actually care. So, which is
he did say that, didn't he?
Yeah, he did say that. And he was
Yeah,
like,
I've
I don't
not
really
really
know,
asked, but yeah.
don't care. And we're looking ahead to a kind of Ranchi, and England. I think let's have a little zoom in on Jonny Bairstow. He had. I'm going to describe his test match as bad. He faced 7 balls.
0 and 4. You're saying it's bad.
Yeah, I think so anyway. And also the 4 runs went through point. It should have been 1 or dots. But he's been dismissed 2 times in 7 deliveries, and it looked right. He got out first time. I think the thing I find most worrying about Bairstow, he got out first innings defending and went, right, fuck that.
To a good ball.
To a very good
Very good ball from Kuldeep.
And then he's gone, right, let's launch the attack. Went for the sweep against Jaiswal and he's got out that way as well.
Completely, yeah.
Is his place under threat? Can you see a swap where Dan Lawrence comes in?
Well, I suppose we can answer that with, I suppose, quite unequivocally, really. Equivocally,
I don't know.
Whatever the proper word for that is.
Words.
That, because McCullum basically said that he anticipates Bairstow will start the Ranchi test. So there's that. I think it's an easier thing for him to say because Harry Brook's not here.
Yes, absolutely.
And then obviously even in that world, Harry Brook is already playing, so it's not quite a if and but, as it were. But I suppose the other thing is the perceived drop off between Bairstow and Lawrence is such that and it might not be much to you and I or anyone watching there, but Dan Lawrence is still a person with potential.
Yeah.
And Bairstow, they've seen firsthand what he does in their environment, playing in a way that he has absolute clarity in his role, and clarity being the operative word. It's interesting though, isn't it? Because that summer that he played with Stokes for the first time as captain, that 2022 summer, Ben Folkes was keeper.
Yeah.
And I was just looking up today, before the series started, Stokes said, well, Folkes is going to keep, and I want to get Jonny focusing entirely on batting. And because I was thinking about the Ashes, in my head I was like, there's the recency bias of the Jonny Bairstow things. Oh yeah, taking the gloves away from him. He loves keeping. Wonder what effect that has on him. Go back a year before, and it's like, well, it has a pretty fucking good effect on him, actually. And I suppose that's what they try to return to, and maybe actually that's what they're going to focus a little bit more on in the days between now and the Ranchi test, because I think Will McPherson in the McCullum round table made the point of, Bairstow didn't actually start that summer all that well, and it was only really at Trent Bridge when he went wild.
Yeah.
And, those 2 centuries in the match against India at Edgbaston as well. That all comes from just him feeling a bigger part of it. Jonathan Mark Bairstow, Mark with a C, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it doesn't look great. This is his 4th tour of India, by the way. He only played one match in his first run in 2012, but the numbers aren't great. He's averaging 25 overall. He's averaging 17 here now. The one thing you could say is basically what you've already said, in that he got out defending the first innings. He went too far the other way, in that he just decided he was going to sweep a ball that wasn't quite there for sweeping in the second. It just needs to be a bit more himself, like his best self. And I suppose you can say that about anyone, you can say that about you and I, but
yeah. I think what I worry about if England were to get rid of Bairstow is they have this whole don't get too high, don't get too low mantra. I don't think that extends to him. I think he would get quite, if you've taken the gloves off him, and then after 3 tests of being, hey Jonny, you're the batter, you're like, oh, you're not that for us anymore either. It's a long way back from that position to be from where he was as England's keeper batter, kind of the guy scoring 5 centuries in consecutive innings or matches or whatever it was. 98 tests. This should have been the finale of this series should be 100 tests, scoring 100, winning a series for England and India, to then being to a place where you're out of the side, and then Harry Brook comes back into the summer and he's back in the wicket-keeping scenario. I don't think we'll reach that point because I think they will just stick with him. I can't. Yeah. As you said, there's Jonny Bairstow is on a bad 3-test run out of a 98-test career, and the option B is Dan Lawrence averaged 29 from 11 test matches. Are you going to get that much more out of Lawrence than an out-of-form Bairstow? That, especially if you back Bairstow in. Anyway, let's move on to want to talk a little bit about. I saw some comments about our friend and colleague Jim Wallace wrote a piece for The Guardian where basically said, I love Bazball, I hate the kind of rhetoric and the eulogising that kind of goes around it. And he was referring in particular, or I might be putting words in his mouth there, surrounding when Ben Duckett spoke to the press after day whatever it was and kind of took credit for Jaiswal and was like, I think we should be thanked for other players playing this way. The more the better the more runs we have to chase, the better.
So he was disagreeing with Ducket, was he?
Yes, he was disagreeing with Ducket.
Wow, okay.
I know, but I think again, second name check of the show, Will McPherson, he said something which I think I agreed with. Where I think Ben Duckett, he says all these things with a smile on his face. Do you think England and Ducket in particular, or whoever, believe what they're saying, or is it just kind of a case of like, hey, this is the way we're rolling with this?
So let's take Ducket first. I think Ducket is someone who is very comfortable in his skin. He A, knows the value of his words, and he knows the value of press conferences, which for a player is zilch, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
He does his job. He goes and bats. He's batting very well. Goes and scores 150. He does a press conference maybe 24 hours late when England, shit the bed.
100%, yeah. And
then he just decides to talk, and as soon as he walks out of that press conference, I can almost guarantee he's forgotten everything he said in there, because it doesn't matter. Because fundamentally it doesn't matter. Gives us a couple hundred words.
You're not meant to tell people that, man.
Yeah, but let's be real about this. Yeah. I also think, if you look at the way he is on social media, he's quite filter free. I think he is genuinely someone who, without the risk of repeating myself, knows what's important, knows what's not. Yeah. If people are going to shit on him about that, fine. It's obviously nonsense, but I think it was delivered as in part as a bit of nonsense. In terms of the general rhetoric, which you referred to in Jim Wallace's piece, which I think missed the point actually.
Oh,
because as with any sport, whether it's trust the process, which a big thing with Arsenal and Mikel Arteta, or any kind of spiel, the three pillars of Morgan's whiteball team in the dressing room with an audience of 15. This is incredible.
Yeah.
To the outside world, bollocks. It's essentially, you know what I put it down to? You see those Instagram reels of people talking about being millionaires.
Yeah.
And they're like, what you need seed money of about $500,000, and everyone's just like nodding, being like, yeah, of course.
Point,
now in that room, everyone thinks they make an absolute sense, but everyone believes it, and it contributes to a hustle of sorts.
Yeah.
On an Instagram reel, the comments, everyone watching it are like, you're fucking idiots. You're utter fucking idiots. And they don't care, because it doesn't matter. It's about like what they perceive as getting in the right mindset. Then those things shouldn't even really be a podcast. In the same way that I think if England want to avoid this, and I don't really think they care again, but if they want to avoid it, they've got to find a better way of relaying it, because sometimes it does sound absurd.
Yeah.
The whole point of chasing in cricket is
to chase as few as possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Runs.
The more the better. It's not a thing. What we've discovered in Ranchi, the more the better. Ice cream, yes.
Yes,
runs,
correct.
no.
In Rajkot even. So what we're saying here is, or what you're saying to be more precise, is that Bazball and Brendon McCullum's kind of like Andrew Tate's Hustler University, getting people in, signing in, and when they're outside.
No,
you said it.
I would say it's more the kind of the people who've made it, telling the people, basically trying to bestow that kind of advice when it's like it doesn't quite work for everyone else.
I'm getting a sense of kind of like the second million's easier than the first million because you already have a million to play with. So you're talking to a room full of elite athletes who it's like, oh, lads, you're really good. Just skip down the wicket and whack it back over their head.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, brilliant, why hadn't I ever thought of that? And then we're all kind of all on the outside, morons, uncoordinated, and we're like, that sounds insane.
Like you've written this about F1 before, but like, you want to accelerate into a corner, yeah?
Yeah.
I wouldn't advise anyone here to do that.
They do, to be fair.
And they still do it.
Anyway, we're going to move to the ad read, most important, and my personal favourite part of the show. Vish, you're going to fucking love this, by the way. Genuinely, because I think as a concept, as a thing to purchase and enjoy, it might be up your street. Anyway, this is, as ever, is brought to you by London Westfield, London Stratford City. No, that's just a place. London Stratford City's a place. Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. Google it. Right, going to the gym is not for
How much
everyone.
do they pay for that?
Sorry?
How much do they pay for that?
Way too much. Remarkable. But actually, the more you muck it up, the more time gets spent on the adverts.
Good point, and I've prolonged that.
Exactly. Going to the gym is not for everyone. It is for Jim, not for me. I'm more of a calisthenics man. Maybe you're
2 weeks. Then over 2 weeks.
Maybe you're not sure where to start. Maybe you want to spend your free time surrounded by gym bros. Maybe you don't want others to be embarrassed when they see the 2 Burmese pythons you call arms glistening with sweat as you pass your 1000th bicep curl. That's where the PT pods come in. PT pods are a private workout space you can book by the hour. And while that may sound something like from a lad's weekend in Amsterdam, they're the perfect flexible workout space for the modern world. PT pods are private, open 24 hours a day, bookable from as cheap as £16 an hour, and include virtual PT sessions, weights, mats and Bluetooth speakers. And if that's not enough, you can book an in-person PT or use it as a space to run your own PT sessions from. Download the PT Pods app today to get started, and there are 2 pods at Westfield, London, so you can work up a sweat on your next visit. Would you like to go to a PT pod?
That is actually, with all the sincerity in the world, that is a really good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a really, really
I knew
good
you'd
idea.
like it. I knew you like booking things by the hour. Right, Ben Stokes bowling. Is he gonna have a roll?
I said this from the start. He's definitely going to bowl. He can't help himself. The man cannot help himself.
I cannot go back. The man, he said in public, he said this to people, journalists with microphones. I pinky promised. Right, it's a good one, that one. I pinky promised my physio I wouldn't bowl. Awful sentence, horrible. And then less than a week later, I'm dead set this has only become a story because Graham Swan asked him on TV, and I know I would put my house, not that I own one, on the fact that Swan just hadn't read that interview and was like, "Oh, are you gonna have a bowl?"
I think what actually, certainly what tipped it more as a possibility to me, like I thought he'd bowl this series purely because it's just something he does. It's just what he does. Although he hadn't been doing it for a while. Seeing him bowl during the morning, well, ahead of play this week, he's been bowling properly, and he's been looking good. In part, he's been looking good because the other bowlers bowling alongside him, who were in the match, had been out there for about 300 overs. Yeah. But he was looking good, and he was sending it down and landing on the spot. I actually thought, and this is more for me, I actually thought maybe he'd have to remember the tactical side of it. He's worked out the physical side of it, and then there comes that period where hitting the same length or whatever else that the bounces, which he often does, like that would take a bit more getting up to speed. But he said he's been bowling at 100%. He's not ruled it out. I think it'd be incredibly vital, not least because what we saw during this test was in the second innings in particular, when it was reverse swinging and Mark Wood was knackered, Jimmy was reverse swinging it, and they were just about coping because they could play it later than they need to play Mark Wood. Stokes' best spells for England have been when it's reverse swinging. There's something about his action, the way he falls over to his left as a right arm bowler over the wicket and properly kind of almost Bumrah-like pushes it in. No one else really does that. Mark Wood does it by lowering his arm. Jimmy does it because Jimmy's amazing. Stokes does it and gets it going late by basically tilting and angling. And if we can get to that point, then brilliant. Ironically, the only time he might do it is Dharamshala, where it's like 10 degrees centigrade, and so probably won't reverse as much because the grass is going to be a bit lusher. My prediction, my guess, I think it's going to be the forbidden fruit of bowling is going to become too much to bear. I think England make 2 changes for Ranchi. I think Bumrah's rested. India make a pitch that's going to spin more. I don't think either Anderson or Wood are going to be able to play. And I think they bring Ollie Robinson in as a sole seamer. They bring Shoaib Bashir back in as a third spinner on a spinning wicket. And Ben Stokes then can't help himself and acts as the second seamer. So that can't help himself is you look at that team on paper and you think, could do with another seamer. Oh, that's me. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Exactly that. Last point, Joe Root, Brendon McCullum, unsurprisingly. That sounded kind of facetious. Backed him in.
kind of the quote I've got it in front of me. I mean, seriously, he said crikey somewhere. Oh, well. I mean, seriously, the law of averages suggests he'll fill his boots in the next 2. I think there's some concern that he's having to bowl so much. His hands hurt. But you asked Brendon at the end, you were like, is he good to go? He said yes.
It wasn't even so much good to go. Like, he took a couple of blows, and then, you know, it's your bottom hand as a right-handed batter. Like, is it all right? And they were like, yeah, it's fine.
Get scooping. Right, I think that's enough for today. Me and Vish will be back with you after the Ranchi test when it's going to be 2-all set up for a thriller. The views are going to be through the roof. It's going to be really exciting. I'm going to have another ad read to give to you. Until then, Adam and Jeff, or Jeff and Barrett will be back with the weekly show, the story time. There's loads coming your way on The Final Word. Catch you then.